The UK has voted to leave the European Union, and we're now in a period of uncertainty as to what the country will look like post-Brexit. We're going to look at potential changes to driver CPC, weights and measures, and the lorry road user levy. I'll also be looking at changes for the drivers. First though, here's Andy talking about changes to our trucks.
So let's talk about weights and dimensions. EU legislation's been developed over the years. There's reams and reams of it, but we can put a match to that now. Right, this is our current situation. We've got a 7.5 tonne, 26 tonne, 2-axle or 3-axle rigid. That's the staple of the urban distribution and local regional stuff. Then we've got drawbars, 18.25 metres. They can run at 44 tonnes. And the staple of the UK long distance operation is a 6-axle operation at 44 tonnes. So we're going to explore what might be possible in this post-EU world. But before I do, Ashley's got some great things to say about road user levy or something or other. Anyway, Ashley, over to you.
The HGV road user levy was introduced in 2014 as a way of levelling the playing field between UK and foreign hauliers. It sees operators charged up to £1,000 per year per truck. With the UK having voted to leave the EU, the UK could, in theory, increase the charge for foreign vehicles, or it could scrap the charge for domestic vehicles altogether. The RHA told A Week in Trucks that it would support an increase in the amount it charges foreign lorries as they face lower fuel costs and road user charges abroad. But charity the RAC Foundation said that an increase in the levy for foreign trucks could see EU countries then charge UK vehicles to enter their countries.
Thanks, Ashley. So, first step, let's have a look and see what Sweden do. They've been pushing for this much vaunted 25.25 metre configuration of vehicles where you could effectively run 3 containers over a wagon and drag with a drawbar situation. Standard semi-trailer, standard rigid front end. 60 tonnes they can operate at. Similarly, in Finland they do something the same, roughly 48 tonnes. In Holland they've been trialling this. But I know, why don't we go a step further? Hey, the roads are ours after all, we can do whatever we want. Let's stick another trailer on the back of here, and maybe now we're at 80 tonnes. Come on, think efficiently. Anyway, Will's got some important points to make now around driver CPC and driver training. So over to Will.
I've always assumed that driver CPC was universally hated and Brexit would be the ideal opportunity to kick it into touch. But I'm wrong. According to the RHA, in the last 7 years, hostility towards driver CPC has lessened, and some of its members actually want it to stay, albeit in a heavily revised UK form. I'm here at EP Training to speak to Sean Pargeter to find out what he thinks that UK-specific driver CPC should be.
I think driver CPC since its inception has had a very bad write-up, and some might say arguably so. It hasn't been accepted by the industry as well as we were expecting, and there's probably good reason for that as well. I think in its current format, a lot of people in the industry would say it's not hitting the mark. It's more ticking the boxes more than anything. So there is a huge opportunity to not do away with driver CPC, because I think a lot of people appreciate the virtues of ongoing formal training, especially with our industry, which is constantly changing. But I think the driver CPC in its current guise needs improving. I don't have the answers for everything, but certainly the feedback we get from our people initially is the fact you can do the same thing 5 times, the fact that there's no confirmation to confirm that you've understood what's been going throughout the day. There's obviously verbal acknowledgement, but there's no piece of paper to say, yeah, they've attended, they've acknowledged, and they know what they need to know.
I think Sean makes a good point about the test. Maybe a verbal test is the way to go. One thing I'd like to see is mandatory first aid. Just think how many drivers are the first at the scene of an accident. And just think of the positive headlines when they start saving lives. I can just see it now. Truck driver saves life, instead of the usual headlines we see. Juggernaut kills cyclist.
So there's Will Shires, as insightful as ever. Anyway, in the UK, we've already been renowned for our transport innovation. People look at us and say, what are the Brits going to do next? Well, now we can show them. We've already got double-deck trailers, well proven. But what about if we go for a double deck? We can have 120 tonnes. Et voila!
I think Andy has been playing with those trucks on his bedroom floor all week, dreaming up those scenarios. Anyway, immigration was one of the main and most divisive issues around leaving the EU. And for truck drivers, the issue of foreign drivers taking their work has long been a contentious problem. Will Brexit mean limitations or even a ban on foreign truck drivers? For now, the answer is unclear and the problem complex, as it will have as much to do with our future trading agreements as it will with migration. Take Switzerland as an example. They have been in talks with the EU for more than 2 years on the free movement of EU citizens, and their fear is that by restricting migration, the EU will bar them from the single market. The Swiss are far more dependent on the EU than the EU is on Switzerland, making their negotiating hand relatively weak. But unlike the UK, they are not negotiating their way into new trade agreements, but trying to protect existing deals. The UK is home to 1.5 million EU residents, and I'm not suggesting they should be sent home. But if labour supply was to be limited, it could make the UK less competitive globally by raising wages and the prices of goods. Higher wages is of course good news, but if this happened at the same time as that free trade agreements with emerging markets in India and China were established, some UK businesses could find it hard to compete and UK jobs could be lost. A lot of people are expecting the UK to adopt its own immigration policy, and there's talk of an Australian-style quota system. The question here is, will truck drivers be categorised as skilled, essential jobs? We'd hope so, but could that mean our Eastern European driver colleagues get replaced by drivers from the Philippines on even lower wages? And finally, what about drivers' hours? Could we change the 56-hour maximum working week? That's an EU rule, so I don't see why not. But are more hours a good thing? Like the future of the UK, there is much uncertainty about the scenarios we've raised post-Brexit. Brexit should mean we're able to claw back some control and create a more competitive domestic truck sector. But the EU will not let its members be disadvantaged by our independence.